Hey y'all, Jay Wilson from Onyx reporting here. Today we're continuing our theme of some JET professional basics, but this webinar will only apply for Dynamics NAV clients. This will not apply if you're on AX or GP. All right, let's get started. We've been looking at some sort of a balance sheet, trial balance report. I'm going to continue in that same vein of looking at finance data. But this concept that we go over does apply to all areas of NAV. It applies to customers, vendors, AR, AP, and so on. Today, we're taking a look at FlowFields. Okay. This is obviously a simplified version of that finished report. We're going to explore FlowFields, how it works. If you can imagine, this subsection of the report is a list of GL accounts, their name, and it calculates the balance. Now, given that I have a report date, I think it's safe to assume that I should be able to change the report date and see the balance as of that date. Seems reasonable, doesn't it? Well, let's put this bad boy in design mode and see what's going on. When I change the report date to 1/1/2012, notice the values don't change. 1/1/2016, the values don't change. 2 weeks ago, I was on site with a client doing some JET reports training. They had a report exactly like this that they were using to report their financials. And I looked at it, and in seconds I said, sir, this report is wrong. This report is not reporting the information that you think it's reporting. And they say, oh, we've been using it for months. Sir, this report is incorrect. So what's going on here? If you build a JET report, or even if you have a consultant build it for you, you should demand that this degree of documentation is present in the report. Make sure to include the table where the data came from and the fields that you used. And if you do that, a consultant who's been working around with NAV and JET reports, again, in seconds, would be able to look at this report and say, sir, this column is incorrect. So what's going on here? Well, first off, let's take a moment to understand what is balance. Now, let's not consider the technical, the financial, definition, because I'm not a finance person, but I will tell you that balance is the sum of the amount field in the GL entry table. It's the sum of all transactions since the dawn of time, right? And given that it's a calculation, that speaks to what is the definition of a flow field. Well, a flow field is a calculated field. It's a field that is some sort of calculation. And in order to understand what that calculation is, how the flow field is calculated, you're going to use the JET browser to explore the calc formula. All right, if I click on the browser here, brings up our JET browser. It's got every table in NAV. I can find the GL account table. I can pull up balance. Here, if I expand the node down at the bottom, I've got these little carets here. Usually they're collapsed, but I can expand them. And here is how I knew right away that the report my client was using was wrong. If you just look at the beginning, we're off to a good start. Balance is the sum of the GL entry amount field. And if I look here under used fields, I can see all of the I can see all of the filters you can pass into the report, but notice what's missing. Date filter is missing. And given that there is no date filter, does it make sense that balance should always report the balance today, right now, at this moment, and not have the option of historical balance by passing in a report date filter. What my client should have done is they should have used the balance at date flow field. Instead of using balance, they should have used balanced at date. Why? It's still the sum of GL entry amount, but notice it accepts a posting date filter. Okay? What my client should do is they should change this function from balance to balance at date. When they change it to balance at date, the report will accept a date filter and change appropriately. In my original report, that's exactly how this guy's set up. It's set up to use balance at date with various date filters passed in. All right. I hope that makes sense so far. Use the browser to see what the calc formula is. Make sure it accepts the filters that you think it does. Now, next little tidbit to pick up. Any field on the table ending in filter is a FlowField filter. What does that mean? It means that the field modifies the flow fields. The filter modifies your calc formula. So what am I going on about? Actually, before I get into this, let me just run this report here. Let's take a quick look. So in my company, we have a global dimension called project code. And basically, I've accumulated some assets which I've classed into various projects. So you can see here, here's accounts GL 1320, blah, blah, blah. And I've accumulated some assets in Mercedes, Toyota, and Volkswagen. Now for every GL account you can also assign, or sorry, actually for any entity, whether it's customer or a vendor or whatever, you can assign a default project code, a default global dimension value. But you can see in this case, no default dimension was assigned. Let's put this report in design mode and take a quick gander at how it was put together. Okay, let's start here. You can see here I've got net change, which is a flow field, and I've passed in project filter to modify the calculation for net change. Let's take a quick look in the browser and see what that's all about. So on the GL account card, there's a field called net change. It looks distractingly similar to my balance flow field, except for this time, posting date is not the upper limit of a date filter, it is just the date range. In other words, net change will allow you to apply a filter that says start date ... end date, whereas balance at date will always take the upper limit, will always take the highest date you passed in. In other words, it will calculate all transactions up to a point in time, because that's what balance is, right? Okay. Anyway, let's go back to net change. Here under used fields, we can see that we can pass in a project filter to modify which transactions are summed in the GL entry. So what we're saying here is I want the sum of all activity in the GL entry table where the project filter is XYZ value. And yeah, I could put in a date filter if I wanted to say what was the net change to this project in this period of time, but I didn't do that. Now this is the part where people go wrong in their NLROS function. Let's look here. Sorry. Nope. Okay. Again, I'm looking at the GL account table, and I have two fields that start with the word project. One is project code, and the other is project filter. Now remember what I said earlier. Any field ending with the word filter is a FlowField filter. In other words, project filter will modify how net change is calculated. If I say project filter is Mercedes, what I'm really asking is I want to list out all GL accounts that had activity in the GL entry table, and I want to use a project filter to modify how net change is calculated. If I put in project code, what I'm no longer modifying net change. I'm actually modifying the list of all GL accounts that get returned. That might not quite make sense yet, but again, look here, this says net change where the project filter is F3. So this is saying make a list of all GL accounts that had activity in one of these projects. And it works as expected. Notice the project code field is not populated. No GL account has a default project code. If I change my NLROS function and change my filter from project filter to project code, now what I'm saying is I want a list of GL accounts whose project code is equal to Mercedes or Toyota, and I'll get no results. You can see right here there are no results, even if I run the report, because remember, project code is never populated. So that kind of wraps up everything I wanted to say about using flow fields in your JET reports. What is a flow field? It's a calculated field. What do I mean by calculated? Well, if you think about something like balance, it's the sum of the amount field in the GL entry. If we want to look at, say, the item card, we've got some flow fields. Again, net change. Net change is the sum of item ledger entry quantity. Notice it does accept a date filter. If you're new to the item card and you use inventory, which in American NAV is the same as quantity on hand, if you use the inventory flow field, notice no date filter. So the inventory flow field always shows the inventory available today, right now. If we go to the customer card, The customer card has flow fields too. Balance, balance LCY, balance due. Again, balance does not accept a date filter, whereas net change does. Okay, so if you're new to working with flow fields, use the JET browser to explore your calc formula. Just a little side note for setup, the calc formula is visible in NAV 2013 Plus by default. You don't have to do any work. If you're on NAV 2009 R2 or earlier, there are a couple extra steps that I can link to in a tutorial video. That was a bit of a, that might have been a little bit of a brain scratcher. My name's Jay Wilson from Onyx Reporting. We're going over some JET professional basics to kind of get you up and running faster with your JET reports. You need to know about flow fields and calc formulas because they are just faster. They make report writing easier, but there are some places where people get tripped up and make mistakes. So that's why we had this tutorial. If you have any questions about this, feel to email me at jae@onyxreporting.com. Check out my website. We've got other tutorials out there. Or if you need some one-on-one training and services, I'm available for that as well. Cheers. Thanks so much. Catch you guys later.